You know what, guys? It's like communism. It's not that Concord failed, it's that true Concord was never actually tried.
We were apart for so long, I thought I'd never feel your fiery embrace again.
You sound ridiculous.
Well, introducing Highguard, which is here to finish the fight that Concord started, and is yet another title in a very long list of games that are from the creators of insert famous franchise of the past that really these people just had minor roles on in the first place. But yet we find ourselves at these crossroads once more, where we have another situation where we have a new studio founded by ex-employees of a previous studio that worked on amazing titles. And in this case, we're talking about developers that worked on titans of the gaming industry, like Titanfall 1 and 2, Apex Legends, and even in some cases, the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. Well, does Highguard live up to the amazing pedigree and resume that these people are touting when it comes to the advertising material for this particular game? And well, go ahead and lock in your nose now by making sure to hit the like button on this video. It's always greatly appreciated, but I don't think anyone could look at me with a straight face and tell me that they had any sort of real expectations for this game whatsoever. From the very first moment it was announced at the Game Awards, it has been met with pure skepticism, and rightfully so, because we have been fooled time and time again by these promises of the newest game from the creators of Destiny, Halo, Call of Duty, whatever other popular franchise we can use in order to fool you into purchasing our new shitty indie title. I mean, that's basically it, bro. The grift is up at this point. We understand that the majority of these people who made these games successful in the first place have either long since retired or are still working on the original game or at the original studio, or maybe even dead at this point, in the case of none other than Vince Zampella, who was the actual mastermind behind Call of Duty Modern Warfare MW2, Titanfall 1 and 2, and of course Apex Legends. You know, RIP to the GOAT. He is one of my personal favorite video game developers of all time, and yeah, this is another one of those instances where we have developers basically riding on someone else's coattails, using the fact that they worked at a studio at a certain time in order to try and drum up hype for a game that is not even remotely similar to the previous titles you knew and loved. That is definitely the case of what we have here with Highguard. And what we are dealing with here when it comes to Highguard is one of the most painfully mediocre and soulless shooters that I have personally played in the past decade, because Highguard is exactly what you would get if you took the most popular aspects of the most popular free-to-play shooters, blended them all together into that perfect corporate-approved product, and pushed it out the door as fast as humanly possible. And as a result, there is nothing strikingly unique about Highguard whatsoever. The art style is very reminiscent of games like Fortnite or Valorant, with a slightly more realistic aesthetic to it. The gunplay feels like a mix of Valorant and Apex Legends. The heroes and abilities are very reminiscent of games like Overwatch, Valorant, Paladins, Marvel Rivals. The looting system comes straight out of Fortnite with a very, very similar rarity structure for weapons as well as armor items. On top of that, you mine crystals as a form of currency like you would collect resources in Fortnite, and on top of that, you have minor base building mechanics that use wall reinforcements and repair kits that you find in chests or purchase at the shops using the crystals that you collect. On top of that, the main game mode and only game mode in the game, keep in mind, is, I would say, some bastard love child of big team battle, capture the flag from Halo if it was padded out by 2-minute resource collection phases in between scoring, and on top of that, I would say a more tactical limited life mode like competitive in CSGO or the equivalent in Valorant, and of course something like search and destroy from Call of Duty. I would say this is probably the most unique aspect of Highguard I can put my finger on when it comes to this particular game. Now, games have had previous modes that are similar to this, like in Battlefront, for example, as well as, if you played it back in the day, a game called Brink, which I'm pretty sure most people have never even fucking heard of. But those games each had a kind of similar mode, but not exactly the same thing. So I guess a few points of credit are due there. This is a more unique way to play than I have seen in a lot of other hero shooters, to its credit. Now, this is a 3v3 multiplayer game, which in my opinion is incredibly too small of team sizes, especially considering how large these maps are. But let me lay out basically how a match in this game works, and I'm not going to go into autistic detail. I'm sure plenty of other people have done that, and most people are probably not going to play this game anyway. But anyway, basically how it works, it's a 3v3 hero shooter. Each person on your team picks a particular hero. There's 8 to choose from right now, and you can only have one of each per team. So once you spawn, you get 5 reinforcement items. You apply those 5 reinforcement items to different walls spread across your base in order to prepare for a potential attack by the enemy team. The reinforcement process makes it so that only explosives and particular ultimate abilities are able to break through them, preventing enemies from using those as a route to infiltrate your base during the assault phase of the match. So just something to keep in mind, I guess, as you play the game and start to pick up on different patterns of attack. You probably can plan better where best to apply those particular items. But anyway, you have about 30 seconds to a minute to do this until the gates open up and you are able to enter the large exploration zone, let's just call it, which is very, very, very reminiscent of a battle royale map. Luckily, it's nothing as large as something found in like Fortnite or Apex Legends, but it is still massive considering the 3v3 player count in this particular mode. So once you enter the open world, you kind of have about 2 minutes, give or take, in order to go around, collect resources, open chest, mine for crystals, whatever your heart desires, find armor, pick up different consumable items, get additional ammo, and once that 2-minute phase is over, a location is marked on the map for the shield breaker sword, which is what you will need to capture and bring to the enemy base and deposit into a slot in order to open up the force field protecting your enemy's base. Now, once it's marked on the map, you have a minute to go and convene on that point, and it's only around this time do you actually start to ever encounter enemy players, because up until that point, you will be hard-pressed to even run into your own team during the collection phase, because since all loot is shared, there's really no incentive to run around with other players, and because there's such a low player count, you're realistically never going to actually encounter an enemy player either until everyone starts to convene at the objective, at which point you will grab the sword, pick it up, and whoever is holding the sword is marked on the map, as well as a visible bubble will be displayed so that you can see the person from a distance and where the shield breaker is actually located. And from this point on, you will need to hop on your mount and haul ass as quickly as you can to the enemy base, deposit the shield breaker into their force field, and that begins the siege phase, or I guess raid phase as they call it, of the match, at which point you will need to infiltrate their base, plant the bomb at one of 3 sites. 2 of these bomb placement sites are shield generators, and the other is the core of the base itself. Now, when you first begin the raid phase, you're granted 30 points, or 30 points of health are removed from the enemy base. Now, every subsequent shield generator you blow up, you get 35 health removed from the enemy base, and if you destroy the core of the base, the match is automatically over at that point. Now, something to keep in mind, if you are defending and the enemy does attack your base, and they are unable to destroy one of the 3 targets in the allotted time, or they run out of the limited quantity of lives that are provided to them during this phase, they will in turn lose 30 points of health on their base. So there is a risk and return type strategization here that has to take effect. Even if you are on the offensive, you still can end up taking damage if you do not play offensively correctly. So I guess that is kind of a cool twist. It does help speed up the game a little bit, because trust me, these games can go on for very, very, very long. I mean, we're talking like 30 minutes in some instances, which I think is entirely too long. Granted, again, the 3v3 nature, so there's not really much happening for the majority of the match, but overall, there is just a very, very slow pace to each one of these various matches you'll find yourself in. But that's basically the entire premise of it. And let's say the enemy does not destroy your base or take away enough health for the match to end. What will happen is the shield breaker will return. You will then begin the resource gathering phase again, but this time more powerful loot and armor is available across the map to find by looting chests or purchasing at the store with the crystals you have gathered while mining while you're in those resource collection phases, and it's basically rinse and repeat from that point forward. You begin the process basically identically to how I described it before, and this can go on 2 or 3 times over the course of each match. Again, we're talking upwards of 20 to 30 minutes on average in my experience when it comes to these match times, which, trust me, they start to to drag out a lot, especially when you're about to lose, and because the way the math works on these particular objectives, you end up with 5 health remaining on your base, which at that point you're just like, come on, can't you guys just blow up the other shield generator so we can get this shit over with at this point instead of having to redo an entire 10-minute phase just to inevitably lose anyway. So that part of it does feel really drawn out and very repetitive at times because each individual phase is identical to the very first one. So there's not a whole lot of variety here, and I do feel like this particular game mode is going to wear down on people very quickly, given that even in the same match it starts to feel repetitive, which is not really a great testament to the longevity and enjoyment factor you're going to have while playing this particular game, which, if we're being honest, not too many people are even going to be doing that in the first place if you judge by the concurrent player count drop-off on Steam when this game initially launched. Now, some of my biggest issues with this particular game mode and the game in general, I guess, because that's really all there is to it at this point, is I don't like armor and RNG-based shooters. I don't like being put at a disadvantage because someone got lucky and found a better piece of equipment or got the better gun out of a chest, and I was unable to do so. I don't think that's fun. I don't think it's balanced, and I don't find it enjoyable whatsoever. It is the thing that has prevented me from enjoying the Battle Royale game mode, aside from the massive map size. And well, Highguard has both of those aspects, because there are countless times where I was playing this game over the 4.5 hours I put into it, where it just felt like I was dumping entire magazines into different people and barely even cracking their shield, much less damaging them. And there were other times too where it felt like I died instantly because someone had a legendary sniper rifle that 1 or 2 shotted me, and even though I was emptying gun after gun into them, it never felt like I was actually getting anywhere. So that is a fundamental frustration I have had with Battle Royale game modes across various different IPs, and also it is a shared frustration that I have with Highguard as well, and it's something I really don't like. For a game that gets as competitive as it does, during the raid segments of this game in close quarters combat, it does feel genuinely annoying to empty an entire magazine into a player and it just becomes like a damage sponge. They don't even die from that. You can literally have a situation where you shoot someone for 2 to 3 seconds beforehand and they can turn on you and immediately kill you, just if they have better gear than you at that particular instance, which personally I am not a huge fan of, which also leads me to my second biggest issue with this particular game, and that of course is the over-reliance on the gear. It kind of forces you into this one particular playstyle where the best effective strategy that I found while playing the game was basically during the resource gathering phase was to completely ignore the chests altogether. Go directly to as many crystals as you can find, break as many of them as you can find, and just go buy the armor and weapons you want from one of the shops that are scattered across the map. I feel like this is a much more effective way to get stuff than actually opening chests, which I think is a fundamental problem with the game itself, because after 1 or 2 collection phases, if you just mine crystals efficiently, you will never run out of money for the rest of the game, and therefore you will never run out of armor, you will never run out of ammo, and you will never be without a great god tier weapon, because the highest rarity items, when they spawn in the chests, are also available to purchase at the shop as well. So this leads to kind of a dilemma where the game's going to get even more repetitive, I feel like, when people start to catch on to that particular pattern. They're just going to memorize where all the crystals spawn, they're going to go right there, then when the objective spawns, they will go buy their items real quick and then fight over the objective and enter the raid phase, which maybe that's the way it was always supposed to be. I'm not entirely sure, but it does make the entire scavenging portion of the game feel really unnecessary and just makes you do this repetitive, tedious motion of breaking crystal after crystal after crystal in order to get the in-game currency. Now, one of the high points of the game I will give a little credit for is the characters. In contrast to PlayStation's Concord, the characters in this game are not the freak show that we saw previously in Concord. I would say for the most part, the characters are pretty well designed. They are obviously Globo Homo approved. They have all the right skin tones and ethnicities that you would expect from your modern gaming experience, but for the most part, I don't think there's any visually offensive ones like you could see in Concord. There is actually a white male in the game with blonde hair, which was actually genuinely shocking, especially considering that this is is coming from the developers of Apex Legends. And well, I would say my personal favorite character I played was Scarlet for reasons. Dude, I wish I could eat sushi off of those abs.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
On an actual serious note, I did like her ability, which made her, like, invisible by using her sand powers so that you could escape from enemies. I mean, it doesn't make you invincible or anything like that. You can still take damage, but it does obscure their vision enough to where you can make a speedy escape if you need to. On top of that, she has an ability which can allow her to pass through a particular wall at any given time, which is nice, especially during the raid phases, because it creates unique routes that are only available for a limited time, which the enemy might not be expecting you to take. And her ultimate ability was basically just throwing knives, and it took about 3 throwing knives to kill each enemy. But the unique gimmick of that is every time you did get a kill, it would reset your abilities, including the ultimate. So if you chained kills effectively and just didn't waste your knives, you could, in theory, use them for the entire game as long as you didn't die. So it actually is a pretty cool power set. I did enjoy playing her a lot. And no, not just for the obvious reasons I mentioned earlier, but for a modern hero shooter from a Western studio, these characters are actually very well done for the most part. So I was actually very pleasantly surprised, especially when you compare this game to Concord, which many people are doing right now. So it is definitely a massive improvement over that, which, you know, maybe isn't the highest bar of praise that you could possibly give out, but still, I don't dislike any of these characters. The most egregious is the Abbyzilla looking one, which even that is really not that big a deal. But I don't really think there's too much else to say about Highguard. I mean, it's pretty much just a compilation of a bunch of better games you've already played. There's really nothing special about this whatsoever, and it really begs the question of why was this made? If you have developers with the pedigree of games like Titanfall, why didn't you create another Titanfall? Why didn't you create that game that you're actually known for, that people liked in the past, that's no longer being provided to the market? Why did you create another game in an already oversaturated genre that really nobody was asking for whatsoever? It feels more like a slap in the face over anything else to come out here touting like, we worked on Call of Duty, we worked on Titanfall, we worked on Apex Legends. It's like, okay, that's great, but what the fuck does that have to do with this? This is nothing like any of those. Maybe it's the closest to Apex Legends, but even then, it's still just this weird, bastardized version of a bunch of different games blend up into one that really has no real reason to draw your attention away from those other games it takes inspiration from. It doesn't do anything better than any of the games it borrows ideas from in the first place. It just combines all of them into one place in a way that really nobody was asking for. The 3v3 player count is way too small for this massive map. The game mode, which is the core of the entire game, it is the entire game, feels repetitive inside of one match, much less several. I cannot imagine wanting to play this game for more than 2 or 3 hours at a time, at most maybe once a week. I just really don't know who this game was for. It's like, hey, let's use our pedigree. Let's take a bunch of ideas from a bunch of other popular free-to-play games, jumble them all up together, and repackage all of that and call it Highguard. I don't think this game does anything really that well, and I don't think it's worth playing whatsoever. I played about 4.5 hours before I just had to call it quits, man. I just genuinely did not have fun playing this game from start to finish. I gave it a fair shot, much more time in it than most people who reviewed it on Steam, who spent like 10-15 minutes. Most people in my chat were saying they stopped playing it after a match or two, so I gave it a chance. I played it, I tried out different heroes. I genuinely gave this game a chance, which is probably more than most people who are making videos on this particular game can say, and I can say very safely that this is probably not a game you're going to want to spend much time on, if any time at all. I mean, it's free to play, so you might as well download it and give it a shot if you want to. I just don't really know if it's going to be worth your internet bandwidth or not, but that's just my humble opinion, man. This game is true modern slop to the highest degree. There is nothing special about it. It is a bunch of repackaged ideas in a worse form factor, and in its current state, this is a hard pass for me. If I had to give this a rating, I'm giving this like a 3 out of 10, bro. It's a functional game at its core. It's just not a very good one, and that's what's really important. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on Highguard in the comments section below. Have you given this game a shot? Are you passing on it? I feel like most people are going to pass on it. I don't even know why I'm asking this shit, bro. Nobody is going to be playing this game. This is not a game that was made for anyone. It was a game that was made to piggyback on the success of a bunch of other better games in other genres, and I guess somehow carve out a place of its own amongst them, which I don't really know how that would work. But anyway, we have it now. Highguard, the big mystery from the Game Awards, the massive reveal that Jeff Keighley was so excited to announce, and well, it is here, and it landed with a resounding thud. I don't think anyone cares. It will most likely be forgotten in a week or two, and we can all move on with our lives. So anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like on it. It does go a long way to help out my irrelevant ass channel in the YouTube algorithm, and it is always much appreciated. And as always, I do want to thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to check out this video, and for all the recent support as well on the channel. You guys are the fucking best, and I really do appreciate it. So with that shit said, I will catch you guys next time.